Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Pirate King's Journey by ArcadianKnight. What if, instead of eating the Gomu Gomu no Mi, Luffy ate the Mizu Mizu no Mi, allowing him to transform into water and control water, learned how to control haki at a young age, and knows fine swordsmanship. Join a stronger, faster, smarter, and more charming Monkey D. Luffy in his journey to becoming the king of the pirates. Huge shout-out to all the warlords of this channel. You know who you are. Want to stand among legends? Join the channel membership and show your support. Adios.
Hey Kuro, I've got a little offer for you, Luffy said coolly. Oh, and what would that be? Kuro asked, gaining interest. Well, how about a little wager? Luffy said with a devilish grin implanted on his face. And what would the stakes be? If I win, you and your crew will join me, no questions asked. And if you win, I will personally help you kill Kaya and take her treasure. Luffy said, fully knowing that there was no way he was ever going to lose. Alright, and the rules? No killing each other's crew, and the victory goes to the last one conscious, Luffy said. And what makes you think that I would be suitable for your crew or that I would obey you? Kuro asked. I can tell you're not that bad of a person. You just need a more fun and relaxed environment, and it doesn't get more relaxing and fun than my crew, Shihihi. So, what do you say? Do we have a deal? Luffy said as he brought out his hand. Very well, I accept your offer. Kuro gave him a questioning look as he shook his hand. Oh, the name's Monkey D. Luffy, Luffy said while grinning. Alright Luffy. Haha great, now we'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Luffy said as he lunged forward and unsheathed his katana, attacking Kuro. Kuro managed to predict this and block the attack. Hehe, you're pretty fast if you can keep up with me, Luffy said while grinning. Don't get too cocky kid, it may be your downfall, Kuro said while grinning back. Whatever, let's get started, Luffy said as he leapt back onto the slope. Kuro lunged towards Luffy with his claw outstretched and ready to impale him. Luffy saw this coming and grabbed one of the huge boulders that were scattered around and put it into the path of Kuro's blade. Kuro couldn't stop in time and found his blade stuck in the boulder. Looks like you can do more than just turn into water, Kuro smirked. Of course, I'm well trained to be a pirate, Luffy said as he crushed the boulder from both sides, grabbed it, and twisted it so Kuro's blade snapped. Take this, Luffy yelled as he swung the boulder, hitting Kuro square in the jaw. Kuro was knocked down and looked as if he was down for the count. Luffy was still holding the boulder while looking down at Kuro with a grin. Oh come on, I know you're not knocked out, get up, Luffy said while still holding the boulder with one hand. Hey, that was pretty good if I do say so myself, Kuro said while getting up. Hehe, it seems like you only have 5 claws left, Luffy said while dropping the boulder. He was grinning like a madman, which irritated Kuro a little. I assume that is not all there is to your strength, right? Kuro said while staring at Luffy. Sure it isn't, I'm way stronger than this. After all, I'm going to be the Pirate King, so I have to be strong. Duh, Luffy smirked devilishly. Hey, I'm not going to lose, stealth foot, Kuro said as he quickly moved his feet and disappeared. Right before Kuro was about to slash at Luffy, Luffy blocked the attack with his katana. Kuro seemed extremely surprised by this and stared wide-eyed at Luffy. How? No human should be able to keep up with my stealth foot, Kuro said, still shocked. I told you I'm well trained, and I can think of someone other than me who could easily surpass you in speed, Luffy said with a smirk as he deflected Kuro's claws away. Oh wait, if I use my sword, I might kill you, Luffy sheathed his katana as he got into a fighting stance. HMPF, you seem pretty confident, perhaps a little too overconfident, Kuro prepared for his next attack. It doesn't matter, I know I'm not going to lose here. I'm going to end this really quick, so you will join my crew, Shihihi. Luffy gave his trademark grin while snickering. A vein began popping out of Kuro's head as he began fuming in anger at his simplicity. Why he accepted his offer was beyond him, but it didn't seem that bad of an offer. Kuro had been stressed beyond measure these past 3 years. Maybe he did need some relaxing time. However, that doesn't mean he's just going to surrender and back down without putting up a fight. "Take this," Kuro said as he swung his claw at Luffy's chest. Just when he thought it would connect, it phased right through Luffy and he found his claws dripping wet. "What?" Kuro questioned, confused. "The reason I knew I wasn't going to lose was because I knew you couldn't even touch me, shihihi." "I see, so it seems I had lost from the get-go," Kuro said as a smile formed on his lips. "Mizu no gathering," Luffy said as he raised his hand into the air as water from the ocean and air started forming into a blob above his hand. Once the ball had reached a reasonable size for Luffy, he launched it a couple hundred meters into the air. Mizu no suikyu. Luffy swung his arm downwards and the ball of water began plummeting at incredible speeds. "I wonder what it's going to be like, serving under a simple-minded guy like him. I guess time will tell. You really interest me, Monkey D. Luffy." Kuro, though, right before that ball of water collided with his head, knocking him out and then some. Luffy made sure not to put too much power into his attack, for obvious reasons. After Kuro got hit with the ball, Luffy began walking towards Kuro and knelt down beside him. "Even though you're going to be having fun and relaxing in my crew, you might also go crazy. Shihihi." Luffy gave his trademark grin and began laughing. Nami was still sleeping after Luffy won the fight. Luffy went over to her to wake her up and tell her the fight is over. He shook her gently and she began stirring awake. "What is it?" she asked while rubbing her eye. "Fight's over, I kicked ass, and now it's time to get up. You can't expect to sleep all day and let me handle everything," Luffy said. "Oh, and why is that?" "You're the captain after all," Nami said with her arms crossed while looking the other way. "Nami," Luffy whined. "All right, I'm getting up," Nami said as she began to get up. However, she soon froze as she looked at Luffy and noticed he was still shirtless. "But first put a shirt on," Nami said while looking the other way, doing her best to keep an enormous blush out of sight and at bay. "Well, that was kind of my only one, so I'll be like this until I get a new one or you sew it. And since I don't have any money, and you obviously need it more than I do, I guess it will be the second option," Luffy grinned. Nami huffed but then sighed. "Fine, since you did get me more treasure, I guess I could sew your shirt back up. But first I'll have to clean it, unless you want bloodstains all over your shirt." "Thanks, Nami," Luffy exclaimed while giving her a hug. Nami blushed profusely and found herself unable to breathe due to his crushing grip. Luffy saw her blue face and let up on the hug as he rubbed the back of his head. Sorry. "Whatever, we should go and find Zoro and Usopp." "No need, Zoro's right over there, and Usopp is probably not with him cause he has that whole villagers running him out of the village issue to deal with," Luffy said, pointing a finger to the top of the slope, where Zoro was casually walking. When Zoro got to them, he sat down at the other side of the slope and leaned against the wall. He took one good look at Luffy then immediately closed his eyes. "Luffy, put on a shirt," Zoro muttered. "Don't like what you see?" Luffy smirked evilly at Zoro. "Shut up," Zoro yelled with a vein popping from his forehead. I kid. Anyways, how is Usopp doing?" Luffy asked. "He's with Kaya and the kids. I didn't know what they were talking about though," Zoro still said with his eyes closed. "I see, well, that's good to hear. Hey kid, what are you going to do with us?" The Kuroniko pirates yelled at Luffy. "Just wait there, I'll talk to you guys when your captain wakes up," Luffy yelled back. "Luffy, what do you mean you'll talk to them?" Nami asked. I'll explain when Usopp comes back." After Usopp got back, Luffy began explaining his little deal with Kuro. "Youa's life, just so that madman could join your crew," Usopp yelled. He was pretty mad. "Calm down, Usopp. It was barely a wager, there was no way I could lose. Besides, it's in the past, Kaya is alive and that's all that matters," Luffy stated. Just don't go making deals behind people's backs," Usopp sighed. "Oi Luffy, you sure about this? I mean, he seems like a pretty bad guy," Zoro questioned. "Don't worry, Zoro, I think he's just stressed and needs some time to relax. I can sense that he isn't that bad deep down," Luffy said. "Whatever, you are the captain," Zoro muttered. "Well, I guess I should go wake him up." Luffy stood up and began walking towards the unconscious Kuro. He knelt down and started poking his face. "Hey Kuro, wake up," he said as he kept poking him in the face. Kuro stirred awake and smacked Luffy's hand away. "Stop poking me," he muttered as he grabbed his head in pain. "I see you're as lively as ever." Luffy smirked. "Anyways, go tell your crew that you joined my crew and whatnot. We'll be leaving soon, so if there is anything you need to do, I suggest doing it now." "Yeah, whatever," Kuro muttered and got up to tell his crew. "So yeah, I lost a bet and now we are part of that kid's crew," Kuro said while still clutching his head. "What?" the crew yelled, which Kuro did not appreciate one bit. "Shut up. I have a massive headache right now and your yelling is not helping," Kuro yelled. "Sorry," the crew whimpered. "So what, does that mean you're not our captain anymore?" one of the crew members asked. "I don't know, we'll see," Kuro said while walking away towards Luffy and the others. "Okay kid, they know we're joining your crew, now what?" Kuro asked. "Well, I guess it's time to welcome you to our crew as the head of intelligence and commander of the Kuroniko division," Luffy said with a grin. "Oi, what the hell, why can't I have a cool position like that?" Zoro yelled while pointing an accusing finger at Luffy. "Well, you're the first mate of the Straw Hat Pirates, essentially the second in command. Which means, when I'm not around you're in charge of the entire crew," Luffy stated. "Huh, sounds like a fitting role for me." Zoro nodded as he leaned back against the wall. "Sure, anyways let's go back into town. I'm starving." Luffy began walking up the slope, the others except Kuro following. "Hey, aren't you coming?" Luffy asked. "No, there's something I need to do," Kuro said while looking away. "I understand." Luffy nodded. In town, Luffy, Zoro and Nami had just finished eating and were planning on leaving. Luffy finally remembered what he was here for in the first place. "Crap, we don't have a ship," Luffy muttered. Just then, Kaya walked in and saw Luffy and the others sitting at a table and walked up to them. Nami noticed her. "Is it okay for you to be up and about?" Nami asked. "Yeah, my illness was caused by my depressed state over my parents' deaths. Usopp-san took so much effort to cheer me up. I can't just stay that way anymore now, can I?" Kaya said with a soft smile. "I've caused you a lot of trouble. Thank you, and I also prepared a present that you all will like." At the beach, Luffy, Nami and Zoro were surprised to see the present Kaya had prepared for them. It was a small, but beautiful ship. A caravel to be exact. "Is this really for us?" Luffy exclaimed. "Yes, please accept it," Kaya said with a smile. "It's somewhat old-fashioned, but I was the one who designed it. Although I made a few adjustments. I changed the steering column into a steering wheel so it's easier to steer. Also, I added an extra multi-purpose room which can be used for living space or entertainment, etc. I call it the Going Merry. I hope you like it," Mary beamed. "First let me tell you how to operate it. Things such as turning and adjusting the power," Mary began but was interrupted by Nami. No, you only have to tell me how to operate it." "Sure is a cool ship. I like the figurehead," Luffy exclaimed while staring at it. "I prepared everything that you would need for sailing," Kaya said with a kind smile. "Arigato. That's really nice of you," Luffy exclaimed. Luffy heard screaming coming from the slope and looked over to see Usopp stuck to a giant bag, rolling downhill. Luffy said and walked up to where Usopp was going to roll towards. He stuck out his fist and waited while whistling and checking his fingernails. Usopp rolled right into his fist, face first. Thanks," Usopp muttered under Luffy's fist, with Usopp and Kaya. "So, you really are leaving, Usopp-san," Kaya said quietly. "Yeah, I should leave before I change my mind, don't try and stop me." "I'm not going to. I had a feeling you would be leaving." "That's disappointing. When I return to the village, I'll be able to tell you lots of tales of my heroic adventures, and this time they will be true," Usopp said cheerfully. Kaya nodded. "I'll be looking forward to them." Usopp looked up to Luffy and the others who were on the Going Merry. "You guys take care too, I'll see you again someday." "Why?" Luffy questioned. "You're really slow, I'll be a pirate like you, so we may meet up on the sea someday," Usopp yelled. "The hell are you talking about? Get on board. Everyone is on except you," Zoro said. "We're already Nakama," Luffy said blankly. I'm the captain," Usopp yelled while jumping up. "Don't be stupid, I'm already the captain," Luffy yelled. "Wait, Usopp-san, before you go," Kaya said quietly with a blush. "What is it, Kaya?" Usopp turned around to face her. However, Usopp was in for quite a shock. Kaya had leaned up and kissed Usopp on the cheek. Both were blushing furiously as they looked away from each other. Usopp found the courage to wrap his arms around Kaya and pulled her into a hug. "I'll miss you," Usopp muttered. I'll miss you too, Usopp-san," Kaya said with tears in her eyes. They pulled away and Usopp got on board the Going Merry as both ships, the Going Merry and the Kuroniko pirate ship, sailed away. Usopp has a GIRRLLLFRIEENNNDDD, everyone chorused, causing the sniper to blush in embarrassment. They all started laughing, even Kuro was chuckling quietly. "With Kaya and Mary, he really left, that Usopp," Mary said. "Mary," Kaya said quietly, "it's really hard to lie." "Are you referring to Karaha doll?" Mary asked. Kaya shook her head. "Ah, so you're implying you really did want to stop Usopp-kun from leaving, am I right? Also, I found this letter on the kitchen table a few hours ago. It's directed towards you, but it doesn't have a name on the envelope." Mary handed her the envelope with the letter inside. Kaya opened the envelope and began to read the letter. "Dear Kaya Ojo Usama, I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused you, even though this apology falls on deaf ears. I hope that you will somehow be able to remember the good times we had back when I was still your caretaker. I have decided I would join up with Luffy's crew and be their nakama. I hope to find relaxation and inner peace during my travels with them. I just wanted to say goodbye. Love, Karaha doll." Kaya now had tears in her eyes as she read the letter and held it close to her chest. "Of course I won't forget you, how could I," she thought. Back on the ship, "Hey Kuro, can I talk to you in private for a second?" Luffy whispered. "Sure." Kuro followed Luffy into the main room. "Since you're the head of intelligence, I thought you should know what I have planned ahead," Luffy said. "And, what is that?" Kuro asked intently. "I plan on destroying the world government," Luffy said in a cool voice. Kuro stared at him in shock for a second before chuckling a little. "What's so funny?" Luffy asked. "Nothing, it's just you remind me of something I read in the newspaper a while back. A guy named Dragon is supposedly trying to do the same thing and the government has labeled him the most wanted man in the world," Kuro said with a grin. "Well, I plan to be that and more. Sheehehe," Luffy said as he strode. "It seems I have found myself an interesting captain to follow." Kuro grinned then sighed as he went out the door as well. Chapter 7. A big surprise from Small Talk. Luffy and friends were sailing along, continuing their journey after they left Syrup Village. Usopp had just painted the new logo of their crew onto the ship's sail. Their crew would now be known as the Straw Hat Pirates, hence the big straw hat sitting atop the skull and crossbones. Now, Usopp was tinkering with the cannon that came with Mary and was trying to get its aim to work. Nami was lying in a beach chair, soaking up some rays, while sipping on some lemonade. She looked deep in thought but decided to not think about it too much as she yawned and closed her eyes, enjoying the warmth and lulled off to sleep. Zoro was doing the same thing as he was leaning up against the rail, Watto resting on his shoulder while his arm was wrapped protectively around it. Kuro was, surprisingly, relaxing on a chair while reading a novel. He seemed less stressed as he was calmly sipping on some tea that he made a few minutes ago. He was really happy that he made the decision to join Luffy's crew as he found this a lot calmer than having to plan a single action that was years ahead. Luffy, however, was doing something that surprised everyone. Instead of running around and making noise like the idiot everyone thought he would be, he was quiet and calm. Luffy was doing a handstand with one hand, his body straight and had his eyes closed. He was meditating. If anyone else had seen this, they would think he was sleeping somehow in a very awkward position. He still had no shirt on, for Nami still hadn't fixed it yet. Usopp saw Luffy and began snickering. He crept up so he was standing behind Luffy's back. He lunged forward, intending on tackling Luffy. However, he was in for a surprise as he phased right through Luffy and landed face first into the deck. If one could see Luffy's face, they'd see a sly smile plastered on his face while his eyes remained closed while meditating. Zoro was awake to see Usopp's fail and burst out laughing. Usopp got up and glared at Zoro, but then a devious smile graced his lips as he went into his bag and grabbed out an egg. While Zoro was laughing, he didn't notice Usopp readying his slingshot and firing an egg that was directed towards him. The egg splattered all over Zoro's face and now, It was Usopp's turn to laugh as Zoro was trying to wipe the egg off of his face. Zoro got up and began charging at Usopp as Usopp ran away and was heading towards the living quarters. While Zoro and Usopp were fighting, Kuro had gone inside the kitchen to put the dishes in the sink and was walking out. As he was walking out, he almost bumped into Usopp, who barged in the living quarters kitchen with a terrified look. The next thing he saw was a fist coming out of nowhere and socking him in the face. Who did that fist belong to? None other than Zoro, who barely missed Usopp. Now, Kuro was seething with rage and you could almost make out steam coming off of him. Zoro saw that he was clearly upset and made a break for it along with Usopp. Kuro immediately gave chase to them as they ran back out onto the deck. All of the noise they were making caused Nami to wake up, and one thing was clear. Nami is never in a good mood after being woken up from a nap. "Would you guys shut up? I'm trying to sleep," Nami screamed as she got over to the three in an instant and pummeled them into the deck. "That's what you get for waking up my nap," Nami fumed. "Nami's scary," they all groaned. "What was that?" Nami yelled. "And nothing," they all replied. Luffy saw this and burst out laughing while still remaining in his handstand position. "Shut up, this is all your fault," Usopp yelled. Soon the three of them went up to Luffy to give them a piece of his mind. Zoro went in for a punch aiming to knock Luffy down, but Luffy quickly dodged by doing the splits. Usopp soon followed by trying to hit Luffy's legs, trying to knock him off balance, but Luffy quickly stood on his hands as his legs were now hovering a few feet above the ground. Similar to break dancers, Kuro trying to kick Luffy in the chest, but Luffy quickly twirled his legs as he knocked Kuro down. This repeated for a good 10 minutes, Kuro, Zoro and Usopp all trying to hit Luffy while Luffy gracefully dodged all their attacks. Kuro, Zoro and Usopp were now panting heavily as they leaned against the railing catching their breath. "Ha ha ha, that was some good practice. Too bad you guys got tired though. Luffy 1, Crew 0. Urusai," the three yelled in unison. Suddenly a fist came down and knocked Luffy down into the deck while he was distracted. "And now that's Nami 1, Luffy 0. Nami said while standing over Luffy triumphantly. "Alright, you got me," Luffy said as he rubbed the bump on his head. "And put on a damn shirt," Nami yelled as she noticed Luffy was still shirtless. "I can't, you still haven't fixed it yet," Luffy yelled back. Nami let out a deep sigh and then began walking into her room. "Well, are you coming or not? I'm fixing your shirt now," Nami said while looking over her shoulder back at Luffy. Luffy nodded and ran after Nami into her room. When they were both inside, Nami finished sewing Luffy's shirt back together in 30 minutes. "Thanks, Nami." Luffy had put his shirt on and was about to walk out onto the deck. "Wait, Luffy." Luffy stopped and turned around to face Nami. "Can I ask you, why did you even help me? I mean, you didn't even know me," Nami asked while looking at the floor. "Well, because I wanted to, simple as that." Luffy gave his large, toothy grin. "But, I mean, you had to have a reason," Nami still wasn't convinced. "I don't know, I guess you kind of remind me of someone," Luffy plainly stated. "Oh," Nami pressed on. "Yeah, she had gorgeous, long orange hair. The most beautiful blue eyes you could ever see, and the most soothing voice that always lulled me to sleep." "Wow, she must have been very important to you," Nami said looking down. "Of course she is. She's my big sister. She. Luffy grinned sheepishly. "You have a sister?" Nami was shocked. "Is it not normal for me to have a sister?" Luffy tilted his head. "No, I was just a little surprised to hear you have a sister. Someone related to you must be a monster," she gawked. She. "Believe me, you have no idea," he grinned like a maniac. "I have a sister too, you know." She smiled. "Aren't sisters the best? They are always looking out for you. And now we have something in common." Luffy smiled as he went out the door. "I guess we do," she returned the smile as she followed after Luffy. Out on deck, "Oi, Usopp. What are you doing?" Luffy walked up to Usopp, who was tinkering with the ship's cannon. "I'm about to test the ship's cannon by shooting it over at those rocks." Usopp pointed to the outcrop of rocks that were about half a kilometer away from the ship. "Here, watch." Usopp lit up a match to fire the cannon. At that same moment, Luffy sensed that there were people at the outcrop of rocks and the cannon just fired at them. "Whatever, I'll just blame it on Usopp when they angrily come aboard." Luffy shrugged and walked away into the kitchen, feeling hungry. In the kitchen, Luffy and Usopp were talking about positions as Usopp was trying to get the position of captain from Luffy but failing, miserably. "Whatever, I'll let you have that position, but if you screw up I'll replace you," said Usopp. "That's fine, anyways I've been thinking, to go to the Grand Line we would need one more position to fill. I was thinking along the lines of a cook," he explained. "That's a pretty good idea, I'll do it if you pay me," Nami said as she was writing things down in her notebook. "Alright, our next crew member is going to be a cook," Luffy exclaimed. The next thing the group heard was the sound of a barrel smashing and someone yelling profanities. "Come out you filthy pirates," the person exclaimed, by which the crew deemed to be a man as his voice was low. Luffy walked outside and looked down at the person with a blank expression. The man had what looked to be a saber in his hand and he didn't look like he was in a talking mood. Luckily, Luffy didn't give a damn and began interrogating the perpetrator. "Who the hell are you and why did you smash our barrels?" he asked as he saw their water supply lying all over the deck. "Shut up, it doesn't matter who I am." With that, the man charged at Luffy, still pissed off. Luffy was not amused as the intruder broke a guard railing. Nami and Usopp were looking through the door window and were watching the whole exchange. "There's only one. I feel sorry for the guy," Nami inquired as she saw the man trying to attack Luffy but miserably failing. "I've killed a countless number of pirates in my day, but you, a no-name pirate, dares to try and kill my partner?" The man was still throwing a bitch fit as Luffy was just sidestepping all the attacks coming his way. Luffy now knew that this man was probably one of the two people he sensed at that outcropping where Usopp fired the cannon. Not wanting to sell Usopp out, mainly because Usopp didn't know what the hell he did, Luffy just did the next best thing that came to his mind: play dumb. "What are you talking about? I don't know who you are, but stop damaging our ship," Luffy yelled as he grabbed the man and threw him against the wall. The man went face first into the wall and fell onto his back. Just at that moment Zoro walked out of the cabin and saw what all the commotion was about. However, when he saw who was lying on the deck he was surprised. "Oi, Johnny, is that you?" he asked, looking down at the man. The man looked up to see Zoro standing on the balcony. He immediately flipped over to get a better look at him. "Zoro Aniki," he exclaimed. "Why are you on a pirate ship, Aniki?" "Wait, where's Yosaku? Isn't he with you?" Zoro asked. Johnny began explaining what happened and rushed over to the side of the ship. Zoro followed after and gasped at what he saw. There, lying in a small boat, was a man who seemed to be suffering from some sort of illness. He had pale blue skin and several of his teeth had fallen out. "Why, Yosaku is..." Johnny began with tears running down his face. All Zoro could do there was put a hand on Johnny's shoulder and hope for the best. After they brought Yosaku on deck, "He seems ill, what happened?" he asked. "He was perfectly fine until a while ago. Then he grew pale and his teeth started falling out. I don't know what to do." Johnny was on the verge of tears as he looked at his old friend's weak form. His old wounds started to bleed and he lost some of his teeth. "I didn't know what to do. So I took him to that rocky outcrop over there to let him rest, but then your ship fired a cannonball at us." Usopp's jaw dropped about a foot. He definitely was not expecting anybody to be there, and now this was all his fault. He immediately put his feet together and bowed. "I'm sorry," he exclaimed as he had his head bowed. "If all problems could be solved with a simple apology, we wouldn't need the police. Isn't that right, partner?" Johnny cried as more tears rolled down his cheeks. "Aniki, is Yosaku going to die?" Johnny asked out of desperation. He wanted reassurance, any reassurance that would tell him that Yosaku wasn't going to die. "PFF'd. Relax, he isn't going to die," Nami said as she walked up to Yosaku to check on him. "I agree with Nami, from the symptoms you've told me, it's mostly likely that your friend here has scurvy," Luffy explained as he was standing there the entire time. "Huh, Luffy? How do you know?" Nami asked. "My teacher taught me the basics of survival and the most common diseases that people encounter while at sea. And he taught me how to treat them," he explained. "From all these stories you've been telling us about your teacher, he seems like one hell of a guy," she said. "Haha, you don't even know the half of it. Anyways, back to the scurvy issue. Back in the day sailors couldn't carry around fresh fruit, so many people had soup bed to the illness known as scurvy due to lack of vitamin C. However, now that it's possible to keep food fresh on ships, people are not falling ill to this disease anymore. Your friend here just needs some fruit and he's good to go. Oi Usopp, go into the storage. There should be some lemons there. Bring some out and start squeezing the juice into Yosaku's mouth. Luffy, surprisingly, had full control of the situation and knew how to handle it. After spending so much time with Shanks, he learned very useful tips and tricks to surviving out on sea, including basic first aid. Usopp ran into the cabin and returned with a bucket full of lemons and immediately began squeezing the juices into Yosaku's mouth. You sure seem to know your stuff when it comes to medical issues, Nami hypothesized. Nah, I just know the basics of survival. I'm nowhere near qualified to handle my own patients. This little experience just reminded me that we need a doctor, don't we? Luffy grinned. Baka, doctors are one of the more important parts of a crew. How could you forget to find one? She scowled. Haha, it's okay. We'll find one when we find one. He grinned while rubbing the back of his head. Geez, to think, being the captain and all you would be more responsible. She shook her head at him. Whatever, it's fine now. He turned to Johnny. It will probably take your friend here about 2 or 3 days to completely recover. As Luffy finished explaining the topic of their discussion, rose up off the deck and stood up. Or it will take about 5 seconds. He's probably still not completely recovered though, Luffy said with a sweat drop. Johnny and Yosaku were now running around like madmen, screaming their heads off in joy. They stopped their tomfoolery and turned towards the crew in a very professional stance. My name is Johnny. And I'm Yosaku. And we're the bounty hunters, they said in unison. Zoro Iniki used to be one of us, but to think the infamous pirate hunter has become a pirate himself. It's nice to see you guys again. Zoro held out his edit. Yosaku went to grab it as well, but he then stumbled and fell on the ground, knocked out cold. Yosaku! Johnny screamed. Like I said before, it's going to take him 2 to 3 days to recover completely. Luffy's sweat dropped. Let's bring him inside and let him rest. Luffy picked him up and brought him into the cabin and set him down on the bed. Later that night, let this be a lesson to all of us. This could happen at any time during our journey. Nami explained while writing things down into a notebook. Yeah, things like this usually happen in long trips, Zoro agreed. But we can't just rely on luck alone. We need someone that is good at controlling diets, she said. I guess that falls under the cook's role. Luffy had a thoughtful look on his face. Guess that means we need a sea cook. If you're looking for a sea cook, I know exactly where to find one, Johnny intervened. Oh, and where would that be? Luffy asked, fully interested. It's near the Grand Line, and the guy that Iniki has been looking for, Hawkeye Mihawk, is also around those parts, he explained. Luffy quirked an eyebrow when he heard Mihawk's name. Shanks had told him many stories of the encounters him and Mihawk had. Like the daily duels they would get into or the drinking contests that they had regularly, Shanks somehow always won. There was even this one story that he was told, where Shanks and Mihawk went to a rib fest on an island and they woke up the next day, naked in the woods with nothing but rib bone necklaces around their necks and sauce everywhere. Luffy had to suppress a laugh as he remembered that last story. For a Shibukai, Mihawk is supposedly one hell of a guy when it comes to partying. Its direction is north-northeast, Johnny pointed to the direction, and with that, the crew prepared for the next part of their journey, to find a sea cook and get her to join their crew. Several hours later, I think I see it, Usopp shouted from the crow's nest. There it is, the floating restaurant, Barati, Johnny shouted. Everyone gasped as they saw the classy ship that was floating just a few hundred meters away. What do y'all think, guys? Pretty cool, huh? Inside the cabin, Yosaku had woken up and he ventured out onto the deck to see what the commotion was about. Turns out that they had just reached a high-class restaurant and they were planning to stay. By now he had fully recovered, so why not go out and have some grub? He began drooling at the thought of all that delicious food just waiting for him. Just then, a marine ship sounded its bells and was sailing alongside the Going Merry. I smelled trouble, Zoro inquired. You don't say, Zoro, Luffy joked. Johnny was quietly inching away as soon as he saw the marine ship and was finding his way to the cabin where Yosaku was. A silhouette appeared onto the deck of the marine ship. I've never seen your pirate mark before. I'm the Marine Lieutenant, Iron Fist full body, the man exclaimed. crashing his fist down onto the railing. "Who is your captain? Show yourself," he yelled to the group of misfits in front of him. "I'm right here, so what do you want?" Luffy said while stepping forward. "You guys seem like a pack of morons to me," he said, and noticed two figures hiding behind the cabin door. "Although I have seen those two before. You claim to be pirate hunters, don't you?" he taunted the two pirate hunters. "And Nani?" they both exclaimed and came out from hiding. "It looks like you finally caught yourselves some pirates," he taunted some more. "We are." Johnny began and reached into his coat pocket. "I'll show you just what as we pirate hunters do." He threw a handful of what looked to be wanted posters all over the deck. He was trying to prove to the lieutenant that they were the real deal and were not just some lame joke. One of the posters had caught Nami's attention and she bent down to pick it up. "What's all this?" Nami asked as she picked up the poster. "These are all people with bounties on their heads, Nami-san." Johnny noticed that she was holding a certain wanted poster and began sweating a little. "It means that if we get him, we get the money offered on their wanted poster," he explained some more. "Isn't it great business, An-san?" Yosaku joined their conversation as well. Johnny quickly shut him up as he saw that Nami was clearly upset. His theory was proven as Nami quickly scrunched up the poster and walked away. Luffy was observing everything and saw what happened. He knew Nami saw Arlong's wanted poster. However, now was not the time to talk to her about it. Having everyone around here listening would just make her mad and not help at all. He knew that. So, he decided that he'd talk to her when they were alone to give her privacy. By now, Full Body was walking off the deck, with a beautiful woman. He turned to a marine. "This ship is an eyesore. Sink it." The marine saluted and followed out the command. As the cannonball was being prepared to fire, Luffy jumped onto the railing to where the trajectory point was, or where he thought it would be. The cannonball fired and a ball of steel came hurtling towards the Going Merry. Luffy, having honed reflexes, turned his arm into water and let the cannonball phase into his arm. He turned his other arm towards a random direction and redirected the cannonball through his body and out that arm. However, the random direction he redirected the cannonball to happened to be the Barati. "Shit, I'm stupid." Inside the restaurant, head chef Zeph. "Are you okay?" a cook asked to a man that was lying down in a smoldering heap. "I'm okay," he said while getting up and dusting himself off. "Get back to work this instant." He grabbed his extremely large chef hat and placed it back on his head. "But, chef, you don't make me lose my temper." Blood began staining the base of his hat where his head was. "Our only duty is to cook for our guests. Are you trying to ruin our restaurant?" He readjusted his extremely large mustache. The thing was like 2 meters wide. Later, Luffy was being dragged by two chefs into the room where the cannonball hit and where the head chef was. "We've got him, chef." They threw him inside and left so the head chef could decide on what to do. Luffy immediately bowed his head and said sorry. However, he then noticed that the person he was bowing to had a peg leg. "Ah, your leg," he cried. He still had some things to work on, like staying calm after being caught. "Idiot," the chef yelled as he slammed his good foot into Luffy's face. "This didn't happen to me just now," he explained as Luffy calmed down. "What? Oh, so it wasn't me. However, I'm still injured. Medical and repair bills are going to be expensive," he exclaimed with a sigh as he leaned back onto his bed. "I'm not going to bargain with you on that," Luffy replied. The chef quirked an eyebrow in interest. "But, I have no money," he said truthfully. "Hey, that's truly unfortunate. But, since you have no money, you'll have to work it off then," the chef said with a devious smirk. "Oh sure, I can do that. You'll have to work here for 1 year." "Oh, 1 year. On the merry, Luffy sure is taking a long time," Usopp inquired. "Yeah," Nami agreed. "If he'd just change his personality, this sort of thing would never happen. He's too honest for his own good," she sighed. Inside the restaurant, what appeared to be a waiter was walking towards a table with a wine glass. He stopped by a table which hosted the Marine lieutenant that the Straw Hats encountered earlier and the beautiful woman he walked off with. The waiter began pouring some wine into each glass. "Look, isn't that guy over there Lieutenant Full Body?" one of the diners said. "Wow, you're pretty amazing, everyone is looking at you," the woman inquired. "Nonsense. They're just admiring your admiring," he replied smoothly. "A toast. to your beauty." He held out his glass, with which the woman replied by clinking glasses and taking a sip from waiter. "This taste." He smelled the wine. "This fragrance. It's the fragrance of Mikkuyo City, in the north. A bit sour, and a bit spicy. Wurzburger Stein. Right, waiter," he exclaimed. By now the entire was listening with interested ears. The waiter took off the cloth from the wine bottle. "Sorry, but it's not, sir." He took a spoon and placed it in the lieutenant's hand. "Your soup's getting cold. Please enjoy it while it's still hot," he said as he walked away. "By the way, I'm the assistant head chef, Sanji, not a waiter." He turned his head to talk to them as he walked away. All the waiters ran away after what happened yesterday. The woman began giggling as Sanji finally disappeared. Full Body lowered his head in embarrassment. The entire restaurant had to try and keep in their laughter for fear of Fully Buddy going into butt-mad mode. Truth be told, Fully Buddy was very butt-hurt and he wanted revenge. "Discouraged?" the woman asked to Fully Buddy, "'cause of the wine?" "A little." He still had his head down. "My tongue's a bit numb today." He tried to cover up his embarrassing act. The woman only continued to giggle further. Upstairs in the staff quarters, 1 week, please. Luffy held out a finger. "Hey, what did you say?" The chef continued to smirk more. 2 weeks. Luffy now held out 2 fingers. "Hey, you ruined the restaurant, and injured the head chef." The chef leaned forward to use his extremely tall chef's hat to bonk Luffy on the head. "Do you think you can make up for that in just 2 weeks? Then it's decided. 3 weeks. No way." He began spinning and kicked Luffy. Of course. Luffy was caught off guard and wasn't ready for the oncoming attack, so he crashed into the wall. Luffy got up from the rubble and began dusting off his hat. "I've waited and trained for 10 whole years to become a pirate. There's no way I'm staying here for 1 year. Then it's final. I'll work 1 week here. That's my final decision." "Oh, you're that much in a hurry to become a pirate, eh?" He began walking towards Luffy. "Well then, how about this? Instead of 1 year, you give me one of your legs." He held out a hacksaw as it glistened in the sunlight. "Time to screw with this guy," Luffy thought. "Alright, that's pretty easy." Luffy took the saw from his hands and chopped his leg off. "Good Oda, boy, I was just joking. What have you done?" He backed away while looking in shock. "Ha ha ha, so was I." Luffy turned his chopped off leg into water and it formed back onto his body. "Huh? So you ate a devil's fruit? Huh? Which one?" he asked on with interest plastered on his face. "The mizu no mi. I'm a waterman." Luffy turned his hand into water to demonstrate. "That is a pretty powerful devil fruit you have there, boy. How in the world did you find one of the logias in the East Blue of all places?" "From my old buddy Shanks, of course." She. He grinned sheepishly. "Now my question is, how the hell do you know red-haired Shanks?" Zeph was really surprised. A kid with a logia ability randomly appears in the East Blue of all places, and now he has relations with a Yonkou. What is to come of this era? "Shanks ported in my hometown for a year and I got to know him better. He found on an Akuma no Mi on one of his voyages and I accidentally ate it." She. He took off his hat and began staring at it thoughtfully. Then, before he was about to leave, he entrusted me with his hat, his treasure, and we made a promise that I would return his hat to him when I become a great pirate, and this hat has been my treasure ever since. He left the part out about Shanks training him because that information was best left unrevealed to people other than his nakama. That is some story there, kid, but it doesn't matter. You're still working for 1 year to pay this olive. He screamed and attempted to kick Luffy again, but this time Luffy is prepared and his kick just phased right through him. She, not this time, Osan. Luffy stuck his tongue out. "Hey, why are you so hell-bent on only working for 1 week? I already told you. And besides, the damage that I'm going to cause is going to make you want to throw me out maybe even before 1 week. He grinned devilishly. "Ha, whatever, we'll see what happens. Now go downstairs and get to work, we'll see if your threat holds true." He pointed towards the stairs. "You are on, Osan." Luffy stormed downstairs ready to tear shit up. As he walked down the stairs from the crew quarters, he noticed some commotion happening at a certain table. He observed what appeared to be the same marine that ordered an assault on his ship, the woman he was with, and some blonde guy dressed in a suit. He assumed that was the waiter. He raised an eyebrow in interest and simply observed the events from atop the stairs. The Marine stomped on a bug while the waiter was walking away and placed it in his soup. Luffy noticed a sly smirk on the Mont's face as he called for the waiter again, rather loudly, probably trying to get the entire restaurant's attention. The waiter turned around and walked over towards the table once again. "Didn't I already mention that I'm not a waiter?" the man sighed. However, the man quickly ignored the Marine as he saw the beautiful woman dining with him. "Though I can see that you've got great taste when it comes to your company." He grabbed the lady's hand. "So what do you say, miss? Care to ditch this guy and have some wine with me?" Full Body slammed his hand on the table, looking quite upset. "Oi! Does this restaurant serve bug soup to his customers?" He pointed towards the bug that he put in his soup. "Bugs?" the man questioned as he looked at the soup. "Then what is this bug in soup?" he questioned. "That should do the trick." "I'm very sorry, sir, but I don't know either," he replied back with a smirk. "I'm not much of an expert on bugs." His smirk widened as the entire restaurant broke out into a fit of giggles and laughs. Obviously the blonde man had won this battle of wits. Fully Buddy was obviously not taking the defeat in stride as he was clenching his teeth and clutching the table sheets. He was like that for a couple of seconds until he finally snapped. "Stop mocking me," he shouted as he brought his iron fist upon the table and broke it in half. With the crew, the commotion could be heard outside, as Zoro, Nami and Usopp had docked outside Noah little ferry boat. They were going to see how Luffy was doing, until they heard what to them sounded like a table breaking. Back inside, the blonde man was now kneeling on the ground clutching the soup that had spilled over. If you had simply picked the bug out, it would have been edible. "I spent 3 full days and nights preparing this soup." He was clearly pissed. A shadow was covering his face so one couldn't see his expression, but his tone of voice showed that he was not too happy. To add insult to injury, Full Body stomped on his hand and began twisting his foot. "Do you think you should be using such a tone against a customer?" he added, which wasn't helping the situation at all. Luffy could clearly see that the blonde man was upset, and he didn't even have to use haki to notice the deadly aura coming off of him. "Can money fill your stomach?" he asked the Marine with clear venom in his voice. "Nani?" was only the Marine's reply. "I said, can money fill your stomach?" Then, in an instant, the blonde man was twirling his legs while on his hands. It seemed pretty stupid to the people in the restaurant, but Luffy was not so ignorant. He saw what he was doing and he was fairly impressed. The fight was over soon after, as the chef had landed several kicks to the guy's head and knocked him out. He was now holding him in the air by the neck. Under all the commotion, no one noticed Zoro, Nami and Usopp walk into the restaurant. They were surprised when they came in, and the first thing they saw was some blonde guy holding up the SBAG that attacked their ship, all bloodied and bruised. Just then, a very large man came out of the hallway leading to the restrooms. He had a small rope tied around his head and a basic uniform with an apron. He seemed pretty upset as his face was contorted and he pointed his finger accusingly. "Hey, you're at it again, Sanji." He began walking toward the chef, who Luffy now assumed was Sanji. "What are you doing to our customer? Isn't that a Marine lieutenant?" he yelled, angered. "Got a problem, you shitty cook? And don't talk to me that way," he replied smoothly. "A shitty cook like you has no right calling me shitty. To a restaurant, customers are everything. What are you thinking, beating up our precious customers? Customer or not, it's no different. This guy not only ruined our food, he also insulted the chef, right to his face." He dropped the man to the floor, whom let out a groan as he reached the ground. "That's why I thought I should teach him a lesson. What is with this restaurant? Do you treat all your customers like this? How does it even stay in business? I'll destroy it. Your precious little restaurant, I'll destroy it. I'll contact my superiors," Full Body exclaimed from his slumped position. "Is that so? Guess I can't let you leave her alive." He began walking up to Full Body. Ever so slowly, each step felt like an hour for Full Body as he saw his approaching doom. However, the other chefs came running and suppressed Sanji so he couldn't move. The chefs yelled at Sanji to stop. "Let me go." He started it, he yelled in protest. "The bastard started it," he continued his struggle against the chefs. "Just who do you think you are, huh?" He was clearly pissed. The glare he sent to Full Body was proof of that. Deciding he wanted to get off the sidelines, Luffy made his move. He walked down the stairs toward the commotion, each passing step bringing him ever so closer to his target. Full Body was unaware of the approaching danger. He was too busy paying attention to Sanji that he didn't even notice Luffy sneak up beside him. "Hey, you're the asshole that shot a cannonball at my ship." Startled, Full Body turned to his left to see the same boy with a straw hat standing in front of him. "What do you want, kid? Get lost," he yelled. He was in no condition to fight anyone right now. "I just want some payback for that cannonball you shot at my ship." Luffy cracked his knuckles with a malicious grin on his face. Before Full Body could respond, he was met with a quick fist to the face, sending him flying across the restaurant. "Ah, that's better." Luffy grinned. The entire restaurant was taken aback, including the chefs. "Who are you?" yelled Patty, the large man. "I'm Monkey D. Luffy. I was the one who did the damage on your ship earlier. Well, it wouldn't have happened if this marine guy didn't decide to attack my ship first. I'll be working here for a week to repay the damages." "Okay, kid. But remember the one rule that we follow here. Customers are gods, got that?" Patty questioned. "What kind of dumb rule is that? If a customer like that jackass shows up, I'm not just gonna let him step all over me. I don't work under anyone's orders but my own. Got that?" Luffy taunted, obviously not liking the idea of anyone giving him orders. "Well then I will have teach you a lesson in discipline," Patty yelled as he swung at Luffy. Luffy simply blocked it with his forearm and pushed Patty's arm back right at him. "I'd like to see you try and fight me and live to tell the tale." He smirked as he began walking towards his crew. Everyone in the room was in shock at what just happened. How could that skinny little kid fight off that mini giant? He got to his crew with a great idea in mind. "Hey guys, I think I just found ourselves a cook." She. He pointed towards the blonde guy. All the Straw Hats yelled in surprised. To them, their captain was a strange one indeed. After being at the restaurant for half an hour, the boy already found someone he thought was worthy of being the cook. "Oi, Luffy, are you sure that guy is capable of being on a pirate ship?" Zoro was skeptical. Sure, the blonde guy seemed like he knew how to cook, considering Zoro overheard the conversation and apparently, the blonde guy was the assistant chef. But could he hold himself in a fight was the real question. Being on a pirate ship requires more than just skill in a particular role. You would need to be able to fight or you would be considered deadweight. As if sensing Zoro's thoughts, Luffy replied, "Don't worry, he's a good chef from what I've heard, and he's a more than capable fighter." His eyes moved to Zoro's for a split second, telling the swordsman not to worry. "Anyways, apparently, I'm going to be working here for a week to pay off the damages, so it will give me plenty of time to recruit Sanji." They all assumed Sanji was the chef, and it will give you guys a nice little break. A smile crept onto everyone's face after hearing Luffy mention the word break. One smile in particular was the largest. Kuro was smiling like a madman. Oh, how he loved this new lifestyle. "By the way, Kuro, approximately how long do you think it will take for the Kuroniko division to gather enough supplies to regroup with us?" he asked. "Oh, I'd say given the status they were in when we left Syrup. About a week, give or take a few days." Alright. Tell them to just wait for further orders until I deem it necessary that we group." "Got it?" Kuro nodded. "Sure, I'll send word later today. But do you have any specific reason as to why you want to wait for them to regroup with us? I mean, wouldn't it be beneficial for us to have strength in numbers?" Kuro asked, slightly confused. "I understand what you mean, but I'd rather our crew lay low during our time in East Blue, and I also have other plans." For a split second he glanced at Nami, more specifically the spot where the tattoo of the Arlong pirates was. The quick glance went unnoticed by Kuro, who merely shrugged. "I guess if that's what you think is best, then I guess I have to take your word for it. Now if you will excuse me, I've just been dying to try the food here." He smirked and walked past Luffy. Luffy chuckled slightly. To him, Kuro seemed to be having a fun time so far. Suddenly, the doors burst open, revealing the silhouette of a figure in the sunlight. The silhouette took several steps into the restaurant. It was revealed to be a male who seemed to be in his late 20s to early 30s, and from what Luffy could sense, was dying from starvation. There were murmurs among the customers, identifying the man there to be a pirate of Don Krieg's crew. He continued walking slowly. What seemed like an agonizingly long time for the customers was in reality only a couple of seconds as he finally reached the dining table and sat down. Kicking his feet up in the air, he said, "I don't care what it is. Just get me some food." Patty was there to greet him as he had on his trademark customers are God's smile on while clasping his hands together. Welcome, you worthless bastard. His mouth barely moved as he said it cheerfully. The rest of the restaurant gasped as they thought that he was going to be killed for sure. I'll only say it again, bring me some food or I'll have to use force. I'm sorry sir, but we expect that you pay for the food here. Do you have any money? The man lifted a gun that he had in a belt holster into the air, pointing it at Patty's head. Is a bullet okay? He answered, clearly not amused. But Luffy could see that his eyes were faded. That man was dying. So I'll assume that you don't have money. Patty immediately brought both his fists down onto the man after uttering the sentence. A chair was broken as the man went crashing to the floor. The rest of the restaurant began hollering things like, "Way to go, cook." Wow, these guys sure take their business seriously, Luffy thought, not completely surprised by the violent solution to their customer problem. The man was kneeling on the floor clutching his growling stomach, his breaths becoming more harsh and shallow. Oh, your stomach is growling, you damn filthy pirate. That was a fart. Hurry up you jerk, get me something to eat. He growled up at the man, growling stomach and all. You're no customer, so get the hell out of here, Patty yelled, finally snapping. Meanwhile, Sanji had sneaked away from all the commotion and went into the kitchen. Luffy turned his head and observed him cutting vegetables. Interesting. Patty had begun his assault on the fallen man. He began kicking at the man's stomach while the man took it all. No energy to fight back, all he could do was clutch his stomach and groan in pain. Luffy felt sympathy for the man, as he could relate, having to fight for food every day during his training, even having to go without food for days. Luffy knew what it was like to be starving. Though at the same Luffy had no obligation to help him, so he simply observed. Patty soon stopped his assault and stood triumphantly over the man. Alright everyone, please continue and enjoy your meal. He bowed as he picked him up and walked out to the back. He threw him on the ground and walked away muttering about taking out the trash. He began rolling pain. Damn it. I wouldn't normally let anyone get away with that crap. By now, Luffy was on the upper level observing him. He decided to intervene. Hey, you're starving, aren't you? Luffy felt empathy towards the man as he recalled the many nights he went without food. Shut up, I'm not hungry in the slightest, he groaned back. Whatever you say. Just then, Sanji came out of the restaurant holding a plate of what looked to be seafood and rice in his hand. He walked up to the man and placed the plate down in front of his broken form. He looked up and gasped in shock. Sanji had sat down against the railing and he took a puff of his cigarette. Eat up. Shut up. This is even worse, I won't accept charity, take it away. Sanji sighed in annoyance. For someone who was starving, he was being really stubborn. Stop acting so touch, just eat it already. To me, any hungry person is a customer. I can't pay for this. This vast sea is very cruel. It's awful not having food or water. Just awful. I understand starving people more than anyone. I don't give a shit if you want to die with dignity, but eating now, you could look forward to tomorrow, right? He swallowed as he looked hungrily at the food. In an instant he grabbed the plate and began chowing down as much as he could. Tears were cascading down his face as he was finally able to eat in what seemed to him like an eternity. This is so delicious, almost too good to be true. I thought I was gonna die. He began eating hungrily at his food again while muttering and rambling on how delicious it was. Hey, so you like it huh? Sanji smirked. The touching moment was broken as Luffy's loud laughter filled the air. I definitely found my new cook. Hey you there, Sanji. How about joining me? Both the man and Sanji looked up in confusion. You'll be the chef aboard my pirate crew? You're a pirate? Then why did you attack the restaurant? That wasn't my fault. That bastard marine attacked us and the cannonball got redirected towards your restaurant. Oh, so it was that shitty marine huh? Sanji sounded a little more pissed. Anyways, you should stop from causing any more damage to this restaurant. The head chef here used to be a chef aboard a notorious pirate crew. To him, this restaurant is worth more than any treasure. Oh, so that Osan used to be a pirate. That's why he's so strong. Well, most pirates in the East Blue like to come here a lot, Sanji added. Yeah, this place seems to always be lively. It's why all of the waiters are gone. The constant fighting between the cooks and pirates scare them off. Datsun wants me to work here for a full year, too bad that's not happening. Hey, so you going to join me or not? I refuse, I still have reason to stay here. Nope, I also refuse. Refuse what? I refuse your refusal. You're a good cook, and from what I've seen, a capable fighter as well, so you should join my crew. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not coming with you just because you say you want me to. Whatever, I know you'll change your mind, whether you want to or not. Luffy grinned mischievously. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm part of Don Krieg's pirate crew. My name is Jin. So you're a pirate too, huh? What's your goal? Jin asked in interest. That's easy, my goal is to become the Pirate King by finding One Piece. I'm headed for the Grand Line. Luffy replied calmly. Jin was shocked to say the least. This kid who looked no older than 18 said he was headed for the most dangerous place on the planet, and at such a young age. How many people are in your crew? Around 106 including him. Luffy pointed to Sanji. What, why are you including me in your count? Sanji yelled. Because you're going to be a part of my crew. Luffy replied as if it was the most simple concept in the world. Huh, you just won't let this go, will you? Anyways, why do you ask, Jin? Luffy went back to the more pressing matter. I've experienced firsthand what the Grand Line is capable of. Our crew was over 1,000 strong and we got annihilated. I don't mean this out of disrespect, but I recommend not going to the Grand Line. That place is hell itself. Jin looked visibly traumatized while he talked about the Grand Line. Apparently something horrible happened to him and his crew while they had ventured out onto those dangerous seas. Do you know a lot about the Grand Line? Luffy asked. No, nothing at all. That's why it's so scary. Are you sure you're one of Don Krieg's men? To think he'd hire such chickens. Sanji took another whiff of his cigarette. Call me what you will, but I know what I witnessed. But I've wasted too much of your time. I really must get going. My captain is probably out there waiting for me. Jin stood up, now with a full belly of food. Sanji was nice enough to find him a dinghy that he could use to temporarily set sail and find his crew. He was standing on the dinghy facing the both of them. Well, I'll see you later. I'm still going to the Grand Line, Luffy said blankly. Yeah, do what you want. We're strangers, so I've got no right trying to stop you. But I have warned you. And Sanji-san. Thank you very much for all you've done. You saved my life and that fried rice was the best. Can I come here again? He asked with a real smile. Hey, anytime. Sanji replied back. Hey, waiter boy. Oh, here you are. Zeph called out from above them as he saw the empty plate of food and Jin, who had his strength back and was ready to float away. I'm so sorry. Now you're going to get into trouble for letting me eat here for free. Sanji began walking towards the plate of food. Whatever. He picked the plate up and dropped it over the ledge into the ocean below. Well, they don't have any proof now, do they? He smirked. Jin's eyes began welling up with tears as he bowed his head in complete gratitude. Arigato, Sanji-san. I'll never forget this. Jin soon drifted away past the horizon onto the great open sea. Oi, Sanji, waiter boy, get back to work, and soon, Luffy and Sanji went back into the restaurant. When Luffy walked into the restaurant, he saw that his crewmates were all sitting at a table enjoying mouth-watering plates of food. Oi, what the hell, I'm here working while you guys get to enjoy delicious food. That hurts. Luffy yelled as his stomach growled. Alright, I'm just going to have some food since I missed lunch. He picked up a fork and began eating from the plate closest to him, which happened to be Nami's. As Luffy was chowing down on Nami's food, which she didn't seem to mind at all, as she was done her fill, Usopp put a booger into a glass of water and handed over to Luffy. Here Luffy, have some water to wash that all down. Usopp was snickering quietly as Luffy took the cup. He brought the cup closer and closer to his lips until it finally touched his mouth. By this time, Nami, Zoro and Kuro were also giggling quietly, waiting for the tragedy to occur. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Luffy smacked the cup against Usopp's lips and forced the water and the booger down his throat. You drink it. By now, the entire restaurant was giving dirty looks towards their table as their laughter was heard throughout the entire restaurant. Sanji, who was serving another table, looked over at the table where they all were. Are those idiots all part of his crew? He muttered under his breath. But then, he noticed a beautiful girl with orange hair among them. He handed the wine bottle he was pouring over to the customer. Pour it yourself. He then appeared in front of Nami with a rose in his hand, kneeling on the ground. Swooning he said, "Oh Mother Ocean, thank you for arranging this encounter. Oh my love, go on laugh at me. As long as I'm with you. It matters not if I'm a pirate or a devil, but alas, there is such a great obstacle between us," he said clutching his chest. Nami had no idea what was going on or who this guy was, but the flattery was sure as hell fine with her. To her, it seemed like he worked here. She quickly formulated a plan to use this guy to get as much free stuff out of this place as possible. Luffy just looked on with a blank expression, already having seen his flirtatious attitude. Just his flirtatious attitude, and her greed, nothing else. "And that obstacle is me, right Sanji?" Zeph was standing behind the lot of them with a frown on his face. "That's just fine, why not just run off and be a pirate with them?" Sanji turned around and glared at Zeph. "We don't even need you here anymore." The other cooks began laughing from the kitchen as they were looking over the commotion. "The other cooks don't like you anyways. Why don't you become a pirate or whatever you please? Why not just get the hell out of here?" Zeph was dead serious. "What the hell is this? I didn't do shit, and you're blowing your head off, old fart." He walked closer to the old chef. "I don't care about your other excuses. But I will not allow my cooking to be insulted. I don't care what you're going to say, but I will continue being a chef here whether you like it or not." Sanji grabbed him by the collar. "How dare you hit your own boss?" Zeph grabbed a hold of his jacket. "You stupid eggplant." He threw him across the restaurant. He landed on the crew's table. But everyone saw this coming and they each grabbed a plate to prevent spillage. Sanji groaned, "Are you kidding me? No matter how hard you try, I'm gonna stay as chef here, until you go to hell," he exclaimed from his slumped position. "I won't die. I'll live for another 100 years, Zeph said as he walked back into the kitchen. "Stubborn old fool." Sanji got up and dusted himself off. "Well, isn't this great? The Osan wants you gone and I want you in my crew. This is a perfect opportunity to come join us," Luffy exclaimed. "Hell no. When will you take no for an answer?" Sanji yelled back. "Same thing happened to us," Zoro and Nami said in unison. After about an hour of Nami milking Sanji for all he was worth, the crew decided to head back to the ship to get some rest. They were all standing around casually. It was eerily misty as they all stared out to sea, or what they could see of it. "Man, I'm getting sick of this place. You think we'll be able to leave soon?" Usopp sighed. "Beats me," Zoro replied with a yawn. "I don't know why you all want to leave this place. It's got free food, a nice atmosphere." Nami started but was interrupted by Zoro. "You're the only one." Luffy walked out onto the deck of the restaurant carrying an oversized garbage bag. "Oi Luffy, hurry up and get out of this mess," Usopp complained. "You can't wait a bit longer? I've almost she. Usopp begrudgingly accepted his proposal. "Fine, but please hurry." Just then, Luffy sensed something approaching the restaurant. He quickly snapped his head into the direction of the incoming object, but to everyone else, it looked like he was staring at empty space. "Oi Luffy, what's wrong?" Nami asked. "It seems like Jin's captain has decided to pay this place a visit." Luffy grinned. "Apparently he's worth 17 million belly and commands a fleet of over 5,000 men. But from what I can sense, he only has about 200 with him, and they all seem to be dying." "What? That's still a pretty high bounty. That's 2 million more than Buggy's," Nami half screamed. She hated her luck sometimes. Why did they always have to encounter the strong pirates? "You really think I'm going to lose to some weak-ass pirate with that low of a bounty?" Nami paused and stuttered out an answer. Well, his bounty is pretty high." He chuckled at her response. He almost forgot that the bounties in East Blue are not very high, given that it's the weakest and most peaceful sea. "You don't have to worry about a thing. This fight is going to be more one-sided than anything." He grinned as the ship came into view behind him. Soon, the ship came closer towards the restaurant and it towered over the tiny ship, easily twice as big. Everyone inside the restaurant began to panic and began fleeing the restaurant. "Oi, Luffy, what should we do? That ship is massive," Usopp screamed. "Calm down Usopp, take a closer look," Luffy sighed. Usopp calmed down and looked closer as the fog dispersed. He let out a gasp as he saw the condition of the ship. Dents, scratches and torn sails littered the ship. And even mast was tilting, barely held together. "You guys, go inside the restaurant and stay there in case something happens," I need to talk to Nami about our next destination in case we have to make an emergency leave. Luffy jumped onto Mary. What, are you mad? Usopp seemed rather scared. What's the matter, you chicken? Zoro teased. And no, let's go. Zoro and Kuro. You can go first, I'll cover the rear. Hey, figured as much, let's go Zoro-san. We might finally be able to see some action. Kuro walked past Usopp followed by Zoro. After everyone left, Nami turned to Luffy. So what place did you have in mind? We're not going there, you are. Luffy said. What are you talking about? Nami was confused. You're going to steal the Going Merry, Nami. Luffy was serious here. Why? I saw you looking at Arlong's wanted poster earlier. I know about you, remember? Luffy's expression softened. And that threat will linger, even when you're having fun with us. But couldn't you guys just come with me? Why do I have to steal it? I want to make everyone think you betrayed us. If Arlong thinks you're with us, he'll think of it as an act of mutiny and attack people on the island. It's better this way. He was quite happy with his plan. You can use the treasure on board the ship. We'll try and do this the peaceful way, to keep people involved to a minimum. And if that doesn't work, well, I'm always up for a fight. He grinned. Luffy. Nami muttered as she began tearing up. She did the first thing that came to mind. She wrapped her arms around his back and pulled herself to him. She began sobbing into his chest saying, "Thank you," as many times as possible. She took it back. Her luck was truly amazing. Luffy laughed and returned the embrace. They pulled apart and Nami began wiping her tears. And Nami, don't worry, we'll come after you. I'll make sure of it, no matter what. I just have this feeling that shit is going to go down here. So, do we have a deal, Miss Navigator? He grinned and held out his hand. Nami laughed, nodded and grabbed Luffy's hand, giving it a firm shake. Deal. Alright, now I think it's time to set this plan in motion. Johnny and Yosaku are still on the ship. I think you're smart enough to find a way to get rid of them. He smirked and winked at her, knowing she knew the implications. Yeah, and Luffy. As if already knowing what she was thinking, he replied, don't worry about a thing, Nami. I'm way stronger than that Don Krieg guy. You just focus on getting to Kokoyashi, I'll handle everything here. He smiled at her, jumped off Mary and ran into the restaurant. She smiled and turned around, preparing the ship to leave. One boy had managed to bring hope into her miserable life, and the hope was growing exponentially. If you were her Belmere, how would you judge Luffy? He doesn't even act like a pirate. She looked out into the sea towards her home village. It was almost like a hidden instinct. She always knew where her home was and would always stare out in the same direction when gazing upon the sea. Inside, as Luffy walked through the doors of the restaurant, he noticed everyone standing in front of Jin and some big guy in metal armor. Must be the captain. There was yelling, something about not supplying food to him. He heard Jin yelling desperately, please, we promise not to attack this restaurant, we just need food for our crew. Jin was trying to be reasonable. We want to hear it from your captain, one of the cooks argued. I won't do anything. I promise I will leave after I eat. So please, just spare some food. Don Krieg was on his hand and knees kneeling before the cooks. Please stop, Captain, don't beg. Jin tried to stop him from begging. How could his great captain do such a humble thing as to begging? His protests were ignored as Don Krieg continued. Please. Even leftovers, anything will suffice. His plea seemed to have fell on deaf ears as all the cooks still weren't buying it. Sanji, however, didn't listen as he set a bowl of food in front of the pirate captain. Take it, Jin. Let him eat it. Jin looked up at Sanji in awe. It was hard to imagine that someone like this actually existed. Don Krieg wasted no time in eating as he said his thanks and began eating. Oi Sanji. Take that food away from him. Don't you know what kind of person he is? He's a snake. He once raised a marine flag on his ship and docked at a town and then pillaged it when the townspeople least expected it. What makes you think this is any different? You might have endangered all our lives, Carne warned. As Carne was finished his rant, Krieg quickly got up off the ground and punched Sanji straight in the jaw, sending him flying back several feet, groaning in pain. Don Krieg, what are you doing? You promised that you'd never hurt these people, so I took you here. Besides, that man saved our lives. Yeah, the food was good. Krieg got up and stood tall over everyone else. I'm gonna cut things short. My ship is wrecked, and I want a new one, so since you gave me food, I'm going to be nice and let you collect your things and leave with your lives. Also, there's about 100 men still alive on my ship. I need food for all of them. Like hell we will. We refuse, Carne yelled. Don't be mistaken, I'm not ordering food. I'm giving you an order that you will obey or else. Zeph suddenly appeared in front of Krieg with a giant bag. Here's food for 100 men. Help him get it on board, he said with no emotion in his voice. Head Chef Zeph. The staff chorused. What is that old man doing feeding his enemy? Luffy looked on with interest. Did you just say Zeph? Krieg asked as he stepped back a bit in shock. Owner, what are you thinking? If the pirates get better then they'll take over the restaurant, one of the cooks yelled. That's if they have the guts. Isn't that right, Mr. Couldn't get through the Grand Line? He looked over at Krieg whose eyes were bugged out. You're the red-leg Zeph. Krieg looked on with bugged-out eyes. This was a complete shock to him, as he wasn't expecting such a legendary pirate to be here of all places. So, you're still alive, huh? One of the greatest pirates in history? So what? It doesn't concern you, and as you can see, I make my living as a cook now. Krieg began cackling in laughter. That's one way of putting it, more like that's the only thing you're able to do, he said as he eyed his peg leg. So the rumors were true. You lost your leg in an accident at sea and now you can no longer do battle. Krieg smirked confidently, knowing that he had the advantage. So, why would I need feet to cook? As long as I have hands. Now say what you really want to say. You're the only man I know of that has returned from the Grand Line alive, and you probably kept a journal of your encounters during your voyage. I want that journal. Indeed, you are correct in assuming that I have a journal. But I'm not giving it to you. Don Krieg lost his smirk. That journal is not mine alone, it's the pride of my entire crew. Someone like you would never understand its true value. Krieg was angry now. Then you leave me no choice. If you want hand over the journal then I'll just take it by force. I may have barely escaped the Grand Line, but I had the essentials going in: power, a giant crew, and ambition. The only thing I lacked was information. With this journal, I'll be able to create another fleet of pirates capable of conquering and ruling the Grand Line and find One Piece. Then I'll become the Pirate King, he declared to the whole restaurant. Luffy's eyebrow twitched in annoyance as he heard those words escape his lips. Him? Pirate King? Ha! He walked up to the center of the room where the commotion was and faced Krieg. Buddy, I don't care how large your damn fleet is. The person who is going to be Pirate King is me. He pointed an accusing finger at the Don. What was that, kid? I'll pretend I didn't hear that. You don't have to, I'm only speaking the truth. This is no joke, kid. Of course not, I'm going to the Grand Line soon. That's not funny, kid. It may have been just a lack of information, but my fleet of 5,000 men only lasted for 7 days. What makes you think you can make it? Because I'm not a weak-ass bitch like you, and my nakama aren't weak either. Sorry, but I hate your sense of humor. If you insist, shall I kill you off right now? Krieg's armor lifted up to reveal multiple guns hiding under the metal. Luffy grinned maliciously as he unsheathed his katana and stared right back at him. Blue eyes stared the larger man down as Luffy awaited the assault. Starting a brawl, eh, Captain? Luffy turned his head to see Kuro and Zoro standing at the staircase. It's not really a brawl, well not yet at least, until he makes the first move. He turned his head back and prepared for the fight. Krieg stared the young boy down as if sizing him up. However, he lifted up the large sack of food and began heading out of the restaurant. I'll take care of you all later. Right now I need to feed my men. For those of you who don't wish to die, you'd best be gone when I come back if ya know what's good for you. The only things I want are the journal and this ship. Though if you all have a death wish, I'd have to go out of my way, but I'd be more than happy to send you to the bottom of the ocean. Krieg walked out of the restaurant leaving everyone behind. Hey, this is all your fault. If you hadn't had fed that pirate in the first place, he wouldn't be here right now, one of the chefs yelled as he pointed an accusing finger at Sanji. All of you shut up. Zeph exploded at the chefs. Do any of you have any idea what it's like to be starving to death? What it's like to not have food or water on this vast ocean? Sanji knows that feeling more than anyone here. Confused whispers were exchanged between the cooks. The difference between all of you and Sanji is that Sanji knows that feeling. All the cooks in the restaurant were standing there shocked, to think Sanji of all people had such a hard past. It's my job as a chef to cook for hungry people. Whenever I see that someone is hungry, no matter what their status, it's my duty to feed them. But don't take that the wrong way, Jin. After I fulfill my duty as a chef, I will kill anyone who tries to harm this restaurant. Even you, he glared at Jin. Luffy grinned and stood at the two large doors. Finally, time for a decent fight. As Luffy stepped outside, Don Krieg's massive ship split in half and began plummeting into the dark depths below. Luffy grinned and looked out to see a small boat beside the ship. So he's finally shown himself, he said. Big bro. He looked into the water to see Johnny and Yosaku. Nami must have dumped them overboard and already made off with the treasure, he thought. He raised his hand and sent them flying out of the water and onto the deck. Nami. She stole this ship. Johnny screamed as Usopp, Kuro and Zoro came outside. What? The three of them yelled. Luffy stood there calmly and planned his next course of action. All of you, take Johnny and Yosaku's boat and follow Nami, she couldn't have gotten far, he said. It's him. They all turned to see Zeph looking out in the same direction where the boat was floating. Zoro immediately turned his head and saw a figure sitting in the boat. His heart began racing and pumping adrenaline into each and every muscle. Hawkeye's, Mihawk. Zoro said through shaky breaths. His entire body was shaking with anticipation and anxiety. We'll deal with that later, we have to follow Nami, Luffy said. Just let it go, Luffy, that woman just spells trouble, Zoro sighed. No, I refuse to have anyone else navigating this ship. Luffy looked Zoro dead in the eye, laying down his authority as captain. After a few short moments, Zoro sighed. Man, what a pain in the ass. Alright Luffy, you win. Let's go, Kuro, Usopp. Zoro walked over to the boat where Johnny and Yosaku were waiting. Aren't you coming, Luffy? No, I have unfinished business here. Watch yourself then. Things here are abnormal. Zoro once again glanced over to the boat out in the water. Yeah, I will. The small little boat came further into view as it slowly made its way towards Don Krieg's ship. Zoro readied his swords, preparing for the fight that he'd dedicated his entire life to. He jumped onto the debris, making his way over to the group of pirates where Mihawk was. He saw a pirate shoot a gun at Mihawk, the latter of which had gracefully deflected the bullet with his sword. I've never seen such graceful skill, Zoro said as he walked up to the edge. Mihawk eyed Zoro. A sword with power alone is not powerful. Then I take it that this ship was also cut into pieces by that sword? He asked. Yes. It's clear then, you're the strongest. I've been sailing the sea to find you. Zoro took the bandana off of his arm and wrapped it around his head. What's your mission? Mihawk asked. To be the best. Mihawk grinned at Zoro. Fool. Zoro unsheathed his katanas and pointed them towards Mihawk. You clearly got time to spare. Why don't we duel? Duel him? Don't make me laugh. Mihawk jumped off his boat and onto the deck of the destroyed ship. If you really were a fine swordsman, you'd know the gap between us. Challenging me, are you that brave, or just reckless? This is for my own ambition. Zoro put Watto into his mouth. And to fulfill a promise to a fallen friend. Very well then. Mihawk took off his necklace and removed the cross, which was revealed to be a small blade. Are you serious? Zoro asked. I'm unlike those fools who use all of their strength to hunt for rabbits. This is the weakest of seas, East Blue. Unfortunately, I'm carrying nothing smaller than this blade, but it will do. Whatever, just don't regret it when you die. Zoro charged at Mihawk. Onigiri. He slashed at him, but all three of his blades were stopped mid-strike by Mihawk's tiny dagger. There's no way that you're this far above me. Zoro charged at him again with more slashes. Mihawk kept on dodging and blocking them with ease. Zoro lunged forward at him and Mihawk sidestepped, causing Zoro to lose his footing. Mihawk struck him in the back of the head, disorienting him. Flashbacks of Zoro's life went by. His promise, his dream, all came rushing back to him, strengthening his resolve. Before he completely fell, Zoro regained his balance and faced Mihawk, breathing heavily. Why do you seek the ultimate power despite being so weak? Johnny and Yosaku got angry when he called Zoro weak and were about to leap into the fight, but Luffy held them down. He kept on staring at the duel with a calm demeanor as he held them both down. I can't afford to lose. Zoro stood straight. Tiger. Hunting prey. Zoro lunged forward but was soon met with a dagger to his chest. Blood began seeping the wound immediately. Do you wish to have this go through your heart? Why do you not step back? Mihawk asked. I don't know. I'm not sure myself. But if I take a step back now, all those important oaths, promises and many other deals until now would all have gone to waste and I wouldn't be able to stand before you, ever again. Yes, that's called losing. Zoro chuckled. That's why I can't step back. Even if it means death. I prefer death. What strong will? Preferring death over defeat, Mihawk thought as he backed away and sheathed his dagger. Boy, what's your name? Zoro formed the hilts of his swords into a triangle. Roronoa Zoro. It's been a while since I've seen such strong conviction, Roronoa Zoro. As a gesture to another swordsman. I will wield the black blade, the most powerful sword in the world, to end your life. He took the blade off of his back. I appreciate the gesture. Zoro began twirling his blades. Free sword style secret technique. 1000 worlds. Mihawk and Zoro both lunged forward. There was a brief pause and then both of the katanas in Zoro's hands shattered as blood began seeping out of newly formed wounds on his chest. I guess I lost. So this is what it means to hold the title of the world's greatest swordsman. Zoro thought as he sheathed Wado and turned around, leaving his front side wide open for Mihawk. What now? Wounds on a swordsman's back are the greatest shame, he grinned. Magnificent. Mihawk slashed him across the chest, leaving a deep wound that immediately began gushing out blood. He cried out and fell into the water. Luffy's eyes began glowing blue after seeing his friend gravely wounded. Johnny and Yosaku both jumped into the water to save their friend. Luffy unsheathed his katana and shot off the railing, creating a sonic boom. Mihawk barely had enough time to dodge before he was met face to face with Luffy, eyes glowing blue and giving off strong waves of haki. You're the young swordsman's comrade. Thank you for not interfering until now. Luffy still continued to eye him, katana in hand, ready to go all out. Rest assured, your friend isn't going to die. Luffy calmed down and his eyes went back to their normal blue color, the waves of haki slowly dissipating. However, he still didn't let his guard down, still waiting for an attack. When he saw Johnny and Yosaku emerging from the water, his anger turned into relief. Johnny and Yosaku managed to get Zoro back onto the boat, where Usopp and Kuro immediately began applying pressure to his wounds while Johnny and Yosaku got bandages. It's still too early for you to die. My name is Dracule Mihawk. Find your true self, your true world, and become stronger. No matter how long it takes, I will await you in my strongest form. Surpass this sword. Surpass me. Roronoa Zoro. Mihawk turned to Luffy. Kid, what's your mission? He asked. Pirate King. Luffy replied. Mihawk grinned. That's a difficult path, even tougher than surpassing me. Like I care about that. I've already decided I'm going to be Pirate King. Zoro raised his sword in the boat. Luffy, can you hear me? He said through shaky breaths. Luffy smiled. Loud and clear, buddy. Sorry for worrying you. If I don't become the greatest swordsman in the world, you'd be in a dilemma now, right? I'll never lose again, until I defeat him and become the greatest swordsman in the world. I'll never lose, Zoro said as tears streaked down his face. Any problems with that, Pirate King? Hee, none at all. Mihawk turned to Luffy and said, good team. I hope we meround around and began walking away. Hold on, Hawkeye. Didn't you come for my head, the King of East Blue? Don Krieg jumped onto the platform. I did, but I've had my fair share of fun. You may have had fun, but I'm not finished my bit. He grinned as his armor opened up, revealing guns hidden beneath. Die before you go, he fired away. Fool. Mihawk turned around and unsheathed his blade. There was a huge explosion and Mihawk went back to his boat where he set off and went back to sleep. Luffy took this opportunity to launch himself back over to the Baratie. He landed on the railing and turned towards the boat where Usopp, Zoro and Kuro were. Oi Usopp, Kuro, get going. Right. We'll get Nami back. You just make sure that Cook becomes one of us, then we'll head out to the Grand Line, Usopp yelled back as they began sailing away. Luffy turned to Zeph. Yo, old man. If I get rid of these guys, will we call it even? Do as you wish. Luffy grinned. It was time for a fight. Men, as long as we have that ship, we'll be able to sail the Grand Line with ease. It'll be better than sailing in disguise as Marines. But Don, even if we can get to the Grand Line, what would happen if we meet someone like Hawkeye's again? Don Krieg gritted his teeth in anger. He shot the pirate that said that and he went flying into the water. What are you all still afraid of? Do you think a normal person could split a ship in half like that? It was obviously a devil fruit. Zeph obviously used some kind of strategy to have stayed there for a year with all those monsters. A strategy that he must have written down in his journal. Do you understand now, men? Let's get that ship. They all gave a battle cry. Sounds like they're all riled up, Luffy grinned. Go into the control room and bring up the fins. We can't have the inside of the restaurant turning into a battleground, Sanji said to one of the chefs. The chef nodded and hurried inside. The pirates began charging, jumping across the floating debris. Here they come, finally. I was getting bored. Luffy grinned and jumped off the railing, down towards the sea. Oi! Wait, what are you doing? You'll be a sitting duck in the water, Sanji yelled at Luffy. However, when he went over the railing to check up on him, he was surprised to see Luffy standing on the water. How? Devil fruit. Shi, Luffy laughed. Sanji decided he'd get an explanation later after all this blew over. Luffy unsheathed his katana. He swung and slashed the water below him, creating a wave that grew in size and speed as it traveled towards the oncoming pirates. What the hell? Where'd this come from? The pirates yelled as they were all blown away and knocked back onto the debris, some of them falling unconscious. You're the asshole that decided to attack this place even after they fed you when you were about to die. I'm gonna kick your ass. Luffy walked towards Don Krieg. Listen, kid, I don't know what kind of devil fruit that is, but even with that power, I know you won't be able to beat me. We'll see about that. Luffy grinned. There was a loud rumble, as the water beneath the Bharati began rippling and then two large wooden decks emerged onto the surface, creating a deck for everyone to stand on. The pirates quickly took this opportunity to rush onto the deck and begin an assault. The cooks, who were used to fighting pirates, tried to resist but they ended up getting beaten and pushed back. Oi! What's with you guys? You're used to fighting pirates. How'd you lose so easily? Patty yelled at them. Don't compare us to those other lowly pirates. We're Don Krieg pirates, the crew of the King of East Blue. I don't give a shit who you are, you're not coming anywhere near this restaurant, Patty yelled as all the chefs gathered their weapons and once again charged at invaders. There was a large burst of water as a man jumped onto the deck, clad in iron plates. Who's this clown? Sanji asked. It is I, Pearl, the Iron Wall of the Krieg pirates. I've won all my battles without spilling even a single drop of blood. I'm invincible. You won't be invincible after I knock your ass out with these feet, Sanji said. Luffy was looking back towards the Bharati. Man, what a weirdo. If you have time to look elsewhere, then you should be able to dodge this. Don Krieg swung a mace at Luffy. However, Luffy had already foresaw this coming and the mace phased right through him. WH. What? How did that not hit you? Don Krieg had a vein popping out of his forehead. I'm a waterman. Your weak attacks won't even touch me. Meanwhile, the cooks were caught off guard as Zeph fell to the ground. Behind him was Jin pointing the barrel of a gun at his head. Sanji, please leave this ship. I don't want to have to kill you, he said. Sanji gritted his teeth. There's no way in hell that I'm leaving. Pearl suddenly jumped up behind Sanji and smashed his shield against his head, discombobulating him. He continued punching Sanji while he was still stunned and finally managed to knock him down. I'm the one who stole everything from that old man, so that I could live. His power. His dreams. This restaurant is the old man's treasure. If I don't place my life on the line as well, I won't be able to repay that shitty old man. Luffy's anger rose as he heard everything. There was nothing he hated more than people running over and ruining the dreams of others. He shot himself back onto the deck of the Bharati. Stop it, don't interfere, Sanji yelled at him. Luffy chose not to listen. He unsheathed his katana and coated it with a thin coat of water. Mizu no Kato. He swiped his katana and destroyed the deck of the Bharati. Everyone was shocked and stood there with their mouths agape. Waiter boy! What the hell are you trying to do? Sanji got up and yelled at Luffy. Sink the ship. What the hell, are you mental? But if I sink the ship, they won't get what they want. Do you have any idea the debt I owe to this place? Sanji grabbed Luffy. So you're gonna die for it? Are you retarded? dying won't pay him back? Luffy grabbed Sanji's suit jacket. He sacrificed his life to save you and you're just gonna go and disrespect that by dying anyways. Only someone weak would act like that. He lifted him up. Then what the hell do I do? Sanji yelled back. Now, don't bicker. Fighting amongst yourselves at a time like this is laughable. Though you can't do anything as of right now since we have a hostage in our hands. How unfortunate for you that you have to face us Don Krieg pirates. Pearl began laughing. Shut up. Luffy shot a supersonic water blast at him, breaking his armor and sending him flying back into the water. Everyone was taken aback, unable to believe what they witnessed. I'm tired of playing around, it's time to get serious. Luffy's eyes began glowing a bright blue and he sent waves of haki in every direction. He began walking across the water while all the Don Krieg pirates went unconscious. What is this power? Jin asked as he was barely able to remain conscious. Sanji wasn't being affected by the haki because Luffy wasn't directing it towards him, but he could sense, intuitively, the power coming off of Luffy. Don Krieg was barely staying conscious, as Luffy approached Don Krieg. Agonizingly slowly. The aura coming off of Luffy was so strong he could almost see it. Do you know why you're still conscious? He stood over the armored pirate. Because I want you to witness all your dreams and ambitions being ruined, just like you've done to others. Luffy swiped his katana down and destroyed what little remains there were of the galleon. You're a monster, Krieg said through shaky breaths. Luffy sheathed his katana and lifted Don Krieg up by his neck. No, I'm a pirate. Luffy grinned and pulled his leg back. Aquarius populatus. He sent a supersonic kick to his side, breaking his ribs and sending him flying off for miles. Luffy launched himself back onto the Baratie and stood in front of Jin, eyes lieutenant like an ant in his dominating presence. I hope you realize you're no match for me. Jin lowered his head. Yes, I know. Do what you will. Then join my crew.